What if the spray-tanned septuagenarian who once bragged about ending wars in 24 hours, like a used car salesman hawking lemons now finds his peace plan exposed as a Russian ransom note? 28 points of plunder pinned in Moscow, laundered through Miami's Mar-a-Lago minions, and shoved down Kiev's throat like a bitter pill from a bitter pill pusher? What if Donald J. Trump, that 79-year-old fraud factory whose very large brain now belches bad ideas like a busted slot machine in a bankrupt bazaar, discovered his deal art was less Da Vinci and more Zelenskyy, a KGB-crafted capitulation that cedes Crimea, castrates Ukraine's army, and chains the country to eternal neutrality, all while his stooges like Steve Witkoff fidget like fidget spinners in a fidget factory when Zelenskyy's delegation crashes their clandestine sellout soiree. And what if this festive fiasco of winning is always nice, while workers wither under his wage war wasn't whimsy but wickedness, a deliberate dodge from the deportation disasters and economic eviscerations that have foreclosures surging 32% and small businesses begging for Black Friday mercy, proving the emperor's elastic empire of excuses is snapping back to slap his own smug snout. Envision the grotesque glee of it all. Trump, the draft-dodging dandy whose bone spurs were the only spurs he ever sported, now spurs his spawn to shill shitcoins that shit the bed, a high-rolling hustle that hightails from high finance to high farce, leaving a trail of torched treasuries in its wake, while his house henchmen head for the hills with hands full of handouts. Folks, this isn't diplomacy. It's a diplomatic dumpster fire, a Sunday spiral where the strongman shtick snaps like a brittle bone, leaving a party in paranoid pieces and a nation navigating the nightmare of nukes in noodle arms. Time to eviscerate the emperor whose elastic empire of excuses stretches from fake news, flack, to felonious firestorms, dragging us all into the deep end of his dementia-drenched depravity. The Miami mixer that materialized on November 30th, 2025, wasn't just a meeting. It was a masterclass in moral moxie, a high-stakes high-noon showdown where Volodymyr Zelenskyy's unyielding Ukrainian delegation descended on the sun-soaked soiree like avenging angels on an autocrat's altar, crashing Steve Witkoff's clandestine confab with Rubio and Kushner like a Keystone Cops comedy gone geopolitical. Picture the scene. Witkoff, Trump's real estate rouletter turned rogue envoy, fidgeting with his tie like a schoolboy caught copying homework, his face flushing redder than a Russian roulette wheel as the Ukrainians, led by Andriy Yermak, Zelenskyy's steely chief of staff, stride into the room with the swagger of survivors who've stared down hypersonic hell and lived to laugh at it. Rubio, the Florida flip-flopper whose foreign policy flip-flops flip-flop from hawk to heel, shifts in his seat like a snake in a sack, while Kushner, the oily operator whose Oval Office optics once optimized Ivanka's influence, eyes the exit like a man who's suddenly remembered a very important meeting with his mirror. Zelensky's squad, schooled in the school of shattered steel and scorched earth, doesn't mince words or manners. You want to sell us out with Putin's 28-point poison pill? Fine, let's negotiate it right here, right now, in the room where you tried to betray us. Witkoff's wilted wilt, his head bowed like a beaten boxer, is the money shot. MAGA's Miami man crush caught in checkmate. The deal art demagogue demoted to doodle duty as the Ukrainians dismantle his dastardly draft point by point. Zelenskyy's Zurich zinger on November 28th? A zephyr of zero tolerance. The dialogue based on the Geneva points will continue. Diplomacy remains active. The American side is demonstrating a constructive approach, and in the coming days it is feasible to flesh out the steps to determine how to bring the war to a dignified end. Dignified? That's the dagger, a direct dig at Trump's undignified dumpster fire of a plan. Crimea codified as Russian, Donbass dismembered like a bad divorce, Kiev's army capped at 600,000 like a cruel calorie count, NATO neutered forever like a spade stray, all while frozen Russian assets fund Europe's rebuild with Trump's joint projects, a joint venture in joint betrayal. The Ukrainians, unbowed by Black Sea bombardments and Bakhmut's bloodbaths, aren't buying the bait. Our work goes on. Our struggle goes on. We have no right to fall short, no right to retreat or turn on one another. No retreat. That's Zelensky's zinger, a zeppelin of zeal that zaps Trump's zombified 24-hour zinger. The man who zagged from genius withdrawal in 2021 to zagging back to Zelensky's zinger in 2025. His concepts of a plan, a conceptual collapse that collapses under scrutiny. Witkoff's whimper? A wallow in weakness. The Wall Street wizard whose Witkoff wizardry wizarded away billions in brick-and-mortar blunders, now wizarding away Ukraine's sovereignty like a bad bet on Baltic bonds. His fidgety fidget a fidgety fig leaf for the figment of a framework that's more fiction than function. Rubio's retcon? A rubric of retreat. The little Marco who once marveled at Moscow's menace now marvels at Miami's machinations. His productive session, a productive pile of piffle that piles on the pretense. The pathway to prosperity. A pathway to Putin's pantry, where Ukraine's uranium and grain fields graze the Kremlin's greed. Kushner's kowtow? A kowtow of kleptocracy. The son-in-law slumlord whose Kushner company's kleptocracy klepted queens for quarters now klepts Kiev's future for Kushner cash. His silence a sinister signal that signals surrender to the sinister. Satirical sting. The "you're fired" foreman who fired Comey for Constitution clinging now fires felonies at Fidelity. His traitors taunt a traitorous treason against troops toys with. Turning oath. Oh Trump. Emotional eruption. Not legalese. Laceration. Veterans vilified for valor. Families felled fascist feints. Slotkin's shattered sanctuary. Sobering soundtrack. Systemic sadism. Beckham's bloody bookmark bungled borders. Miami's mixer a mix of moral moxie that mocks the mockery. Vivid vignette. Miami's muggy manse. Witkoff's wilted wilt under Ukrainian unblinking eyes. Rubio's retcon a rubric retreat. Kushner's kowtow a klepto's quiet. Zelensky's squad a squadron of sovereignty striding in. The room a room of reckoning where Russian rubles rub raw the reality of betrayal. The rot radiates from Richmond's revenge route. Halligan's hasty hire EDVA enforcer. Virginia vassal vaulted vendetta vanguard. Enemies Comey. Canned Russia rummage. James. Indicting issue. Prosecutorial pins pulled procedural perversions profaned fifth. Fitzpatrick's 11 Infernos. Lone FBI lead marinating attorney-client marinade. Halligan's hallucinogenic homilies burden fifth. Miranda Mirage MAGA mist. Procession procedural profanities profane Potemkin. 12th Pestilence. Thou shalt summon indictments secretarial scissors. Thunders Thor's hammer. Frontier fiat flaring. Uncharted territory. Indictment signed never presented. Territory no court mapped. Negligence. Nihilism. Constitutional cut-rate cataclysm people's palisade potentates prosecutors Plato. Halligan hatchet happy hack tit-for-tat theater.